You got me muted, Jordan?
You can talk to this.
Test. Whoa. That's not right. My speakers are muted. Now? Tom, can you hear me?
Yes,
Tom, can you hear us?
yes, I can hear you.
Why isn't he coming through?
Okay.
Now say something.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we got you this time. We're coming through over here. All right, let's try this again. It's 4 minutes after 5. This is Wednesday, March 17th, 2021. I'm Chairman of the Board of Health, Bill Canada, calling the meeting to order at 5:01. Let's please mute your phones if you haven't done it already. And let's stand and say the pledge. And I'd like Jackie to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, roll call, and we'll have Dr. Brown call the roll.
Chairman Bill Canada,
Here.
Kevin Day,
Present.
Tom
and Tom
Flower.
Flower.
Present via Zoom.
And Dr. Brown's here as well, and we've got our attorney, Clint Smith, is here. We will go audience introductions. We won't introduce the online people yet unless they speak. And so in the courtroom here, we've got Jordan Benson. I will introduce. He's the audio guy. We're trying to get things fixed. At least we're online now. And let's start over here. Gayla Day, you got it?
Jackie Hobby, County Secretary.
Travis Bowers, West Representative. Scott Bowers.
Got both of them.
Lucas Adrian Washington, Emergency Management.
Reggie Foster, PIO.
Okay, I think that handles everybody here. And Bowers. Okay, and I do not have any amendments to the agenda. This is a our regularly scheduled meeting to do what we had planned to do, and that was monitor the COVID statistics and watch the issues and metrics as they come on, and we will react accordingly as they're presented. That's the point. And we did send out a press release, 2 of them, to the Colorado Department of Health and Environment. And we are working with them to make sure that we're taking seeing the recommendations they might have. We're tailoring them for our unique needs and modifying as warranted as we go along. So with that, I don't have any amendments to the agenda. Kevin, have you got any?
I do not.
Tom?
No, I do not.
Okay, and I do not. And approval of the minutes, and we do not have the minutes, I don't believe. I didn't get any.
We do not. have
No,
anything.
I talked to Tina. She did not get them done.
Yeah, this is what she mentioned. Okay, so no minutes to approve. Reports are up. And right now, just so that everybody's familiar with the protocol, we're going to go through the Board of Health members if there's any issues that we have or something different. It doesn't have to be related to COVID necessarily. And then we'll get the statistics, COVID status from Dr. Brown. And then our issues and that might be up, one of which I know the sanitarian is here, Jackie Hobby, will have a report in a few minutes. So with that, Kevin, you have any things to report?
Let me increase my volume here a little so I don't. Not at this time really, in this past week since our last meeting, no.
Tom?
Yes. So you had mentioned it this morning in the commissioner meeting about at least one radio station wanting to do an interview. I've done a couple, so if you or Kevin, either one, want to conduct those, I think that's fine in my opinion.
Yeah, okay, and we'll talk with Reggie. She had some suggestions, and we'll have to get back with whoever's been asking for interviews, Reggie. We'll work it. Okay, thanks, Tom. And I do not have anything to report either since the last meeting. That's I'm anxious to hear where we stand. And so COVID stats, that'd be Dr. Brown.
Yes, sir. On Friday the 19th, we have planned yet another clinic, vaccination clinic. We have scheduled 200 doses. 154 of those are planned to be first doses and 46 second doses. That uses up the maximum of the vaccine that we've been given, with the exception for just enough to give second doses next week. So we are planning another clinic on the following Friday.
Before you leave that, is there an update on whether they're going to supply us with more? I think you said there may be a light at the end of the tunnel.
We wait for them to tell us. We've applied for another 300, and we will see what we get. However, there's been a lot of discussion even today on the amount of vaccine coming, that we'll have some uptake probably the 2nd to 3rd week in April. And as May comes through, it is indicated to us anyway, we should be encouraged because we should by that time have as much vaccine as we ask for, essentially. So at that time, they're expecting to have most of the people all the way through category 1, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, because we are dealing with even a lot of the 1B4s on Friday. So we're ahead of the game as far as getting our people vaccinated, as far as the levels are concerned. But come March, they expect that everything will be open, that we can take all comers. Anybody who wants to be vaccinated, we'll be able to actually work them into the clinic without restrictions.
Okay, and then what percentage of our at-risk people? I know not all of them are electing to take shots. I also know that people have been getting shots in other places. But from your records, how many percentage are
We
we?
had 68.4, I believe it was, that have received but we have a few people coming in all the time, so we may be able to knock that up to 70%. I just don't know. It takes a certain number of people to do that, and we just haven't had the people apply to bring it all the way up to 70%.
Okay, good.
So with that in mind, our statewide is paralleling much of what we see here, in that we have a lot of plateauing. In other words, it's just kind of flattening out, where we're seeing about the same number of hospitalizations, same number of deaths, same number of positives. Nothing is shooting up statewide. We are without any hospitalizations for several weeks now. Obviously no deaths. Remember that as I commented the last time, that the one death that we had in the county was not documented as being COVID related. He did have COVID, but the death was not caused by the COVID. So it's an incidental finding. I think probably most people, and you included, would like to know relative to the variant status, because that's making a lot of news. So the most worrisome of the variants that we're dealing with is the one from California, not because it's more deadly, more virulent, but it's about 20% more transmissible. So you can share it more easily. But we are still down with, they have 124 variants that they're watching right now, but there are no cases or contacts reported in Custer County.
The variants, the vaccine good for all the variants right now? Do we know?
Not necessarily, and once again, they're still developing more and more information, but several of them actually do better. I think it's the South Africa variant does better with the Johnson & Johnson, but we have not been provided with any Johnson & Johnson. Because we're not doing 6,000 person clinics, because we're not offered that kind of thing. We don't have a place to put it anyway. We will not be most likely for an extended period of time receiving any of the Johnson & Johnson one-shot vaccine.
All right, thanks.
So the supply, once again, has been predicted to increase the first week in April, which is not very far away now, but by May it has been postulated the vaccine supply should be sufficient to open vaccinations to all who desire. This is, again, following the history of our national response within the past year, that we are ahead of schedule, not only in the formation, but production of multiple vaccines. And now we're just watching for vaccinations, because we're almost through with the high risk categories.
Okay.
Most of the people who want it in our county have been provided in that 70 plus, 65 to 69 plus, and 60 through 64. And we're working on those down around 50. So all of the categories, we have actually been able to include people of all categories into this particular Friday. So vaccines, once again, that are available to us is a vaccine, not vaccines. It's Moderna, which is no change. It's just that we have to have the second doses also Moderna. So when people get the first dose someplace else, unless it's Moderna, we can't give them the second dose. We're just unable to. It is very difficult for the state right now to tell us what they're going to be getting and when, because the federal government's not telling them. So a lot of the things, a lot of the vaccinations and the vaccines that are being sent, it's almost a surprise, and they're sending them to specific vendors, so to speak, large pharmacies and in large hospitals, or in the chain store like CVS pharmacies.
Okay. What was our total vaccination count?
Total vaccinations so far have been 1,182, and we'll be doing another set of vaccinations, like I said, of 120 154 on Friday. That's first doses. For the second doses, we had 120. We'll be doing, like I said, 46 on Friday, so that will add to our total numbers. They just haven't been given yet.
Roughly a third of the population, or what do you think?
Well, remember that, yeah, that's approximately, once we get our first and second, because I really don't count it as being completed contact, completed
Until the
series
second dose.
until the second one.
Okay,
So we'll be literally just about 900, very close to 900.
okay, and you said we plateaued out, we've had one or two, or where
As far
do we
as
stand?
positives, yes, we're still at 0% positivity. Cumulative tests come out well over 2,000 now, so that's a good thing for us. States that we're moving to where we should be. We had a positive on Monday. So from the 15th, we had a positive, but we've had no other positives previous to that time. Now, to put the record in line with where it is, we've had off and on over the last several months. They are not counted against us as positives or percent positivity by CEDARS, by CPG or anybody else who's kind of watching this, but they are suspects. Now, suspects are people who show up with some kind of symptoms that look suspicious, but they have no direct contact that they know of. And if they have had any contacts, it's a muddled picture because the contacts came after they showed up with symptoms. So how do you develop symptoms from that contact if you already have the illness? So there's no verification that would turn them into absolutely these are.
So what are they called again? What's
Those
the
are
term?
suspects.
Suspects, and we've always had suspects
Yes,
from
we've
the
had suspects
beginning of
since
time, huh?
Day one, yes. Sir.
And they really haven't panned out, is that what you said?
No, we have not. I have not seen any of them over the last 2 months actually turn into
Okay, that's good to know.
real. So just because you've been around somebody obviously doesn't mean that your immune system is going to give way all of a sudden and you're going to be sick.
Okay.
For the total number of doses given by the time we get through March the 19th, it will be 1,302. And for the second doses, those are first doses. For the second doses will be approximately 900. Once again, I'm giving you an approximate number because we don't know who shows up and who's not going to show up and how many extra doses we can squeeze out of a vial.
Or whether they've had another shot somewhere else.
Right, exactly. And we routinely have people phoning us up and telling us they've already had their second shot, or they've had the first shot, then what have we worked in, and so on. So it's a total number of doses of 2,202.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other than that, we have had, like I said, no uptick in hospitalizations, 80% statewide, just kind of like us. They have done 80% of the over 70s. So we've kind of maxed out, and they're up past where they were hoping to be, which is 70%, just a matter of a number of weeks ago.
Okay, good.
Okay, other than that, we've had, like I said, one new case in the past month. We've had these suspects. We've had no hospitalizations, no deaths, and everything seems to be running fairly smoothly. People are watching. I've seen actually more people with masks on and watching themselves carefully outside since we took off the restriction that I saw before we had the restrictions on. So,
And you've been asked to visit a lot of businesses and are
Yes, sir.
helping as required.
yes, sir. And the camps also. So the planning is there, and I'm asking anybody who's going to be holding even an outdoor get together that we work out a plan
Okay,
so that everybody's safe.
good. Any other issues before we let the sanitarian have the floor for the issue?
I think that should be good.
I have a question for Dr. Brown, if I may.
Go ahead.
Does Cedars show Custer County as having one COVID death?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, like I said, I have to qualify that because they list one death, but then there's the little asterisks over there and you look it up and it was not identified as the cause of death. So yes, it does show us as having one death, but when you look into the actual data, it was not a COVID death. He was tested positive after, I won't go into any of the details, but after he died, the coroner has to do those tests, and he did, and there were positive antibodies there.
So why do they even show it then if it's not really related? Do you know?
I really don't know, sir.
Okay, but there is an asterisk on that
Yes,
death.
yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Any other ones, Tom?
No, thank you.
Kevin? Before we move on.
No.
I am
Anybody?
encouraged, though, that all of the state calls that I've been on have been discussing actively now for pretty well the first time the pathway towards green and internormality. So people are paying attention. There are people speaking up from the other small counties saying that they have many of the same concerns that we do.
Okay.
So it should be encouraging to all of us that our state is actively moving toward
Normality.
normality, at least providing a way of escape, so to speak.
Yeah, they hadn't done that before. So.
True.
Okay. All right, we'll have opportunity for people to ask questions of Dr. Brown here in a bit, but let's go on with the issues that are in work, and I think the sanitarian has one.
Okay,
Jackie?
the issue that I'm bringing before the board today is concerning Lot 6 in Ponderosa Heights, also known as 2196 Oak Drive. In 2020, I met with the property owners, and they would like to build a cabin. They own 6.57 acres. So they said that they would like to build a cabin, and I said, well, before you will be allowed to get a dwelling permit, you must have a septic permit, and you have a year to get the septic in. So then they said that they did not want to have a septic, that they just wanted to have a vault system. And what a vault system is half of a septic system. It does not have the leach field. So I said, no, you have enough acreage to have a full-fledged septic system. Now, we have regulation 43 from the state of Colorado that states any property that can have a full-fledged septic system, and they call them outs, on-site wastewater treatment system, must be installed prior to anyone living in a dwelling. It also goes with the plumbing inspection. So I
Real
said,
quick,
no, you would
clarify this. They wanted a vault for what reason? That they didn't think that they
They
could?
didn't want to have a septic system because they didn't want to spend the extra money.
Okay.
So then I said, no, you have to have a full septic system. So then they contacted, I said, unless, excuse me, let me back up, unless you can get an engineer to state that you cannot have a leach field. So they called AG Engineering, and the engineer said, no, they can have a septic field. And I will not sign off on a vault only. Because remember, if an engineer signs off on a vault only, then they're held responsible, and it's putting their engineering license in jeopardy. So then months went by, and I never heard from them. And then now, the last couple of months, I've gotten numerous 3 or 4 letters from them stating that, first of all, they contacted 3 Rocks Engineering, and it's located in Canyon City. And as you read the letter, I highlighted it where it said that sand would have to be used, which means that in a leach field, they can have a leach field. So they would have the septic tank and then a leach field. So the leach field, that they're saying has to be engineered because of the rock. If it's fractured rock, you can dig at the leach field and you can put 3 foot of sand in the hole for the leach field. Yeah, or you can do a mound system, which is on top of the ground and the sand is the filter. So, they stated in their first letter, the engineer that they contacted, that if you read it, I highlighted it, says sand can be used. So then I contacted the state, and Chuck at the state said they have to, right here, the engineer stating that they can have an engineered septic. Then as you go on, I got another letter because I wrote to them and said, no, you're not getting involved. You can have this. Then they said, no, do not want to install an engineered septic system because it's going to run us $15,000 to $20,000. So an engineered septic system is quite expensive. It does run $15,000 to $20,000, where standard septic is about $6,000. So what makes the price of an engineered septic is the sand. The sand is super expensive, and about 3 foot of sand in a leach field runs you about $5,000 extra.
Can't be road-based, just sand.
No, it's gotta be that ASTM certified sand. And when an engineer does a certified septic system and I inspect it, I require the contractor to give me a statement, a bill certifying that the sand that they purchased for their septic is the qualifying sand that the state requires. So then I said no. So then if you notice later on, they got another engineer with the same firm, and he's saying that they can have a vault. He said, it's my understanding from Mr. and Mrs. Marks that all you need is a letter from an engineer saying that they could have a vault. So I thought, okay, I'm going to send all the other stuff from the other engineer and say, go ahead, because you're the one that's putting your license at jeopardy. I didn't say that. All I had to do is send the other stuff, and now I haven't heard from him. So they didn't get approval, so now they contacted Dr. Brown's office, because he's public health. So Rhonda.
Did they know you work for him in this capacity? Do they know you worked with him or for him in this?
No, they said public health. So then Rhonda said, no, Jackie's the sanitarian. So what I'm stating is, this has been 3 or 4 months of constant emails. And yes, I do allow vaults with an engineered letter, and on an acre or less, you have to have a vault. Tanglewood Acres, Lake Louise. But we do not give variances, and an engineer doesn't give a variance. And I'm calling them variances because it would be a variance against Regulation 43 of the state to install a septic without a leach field. So we don't give variances based on financials. Yes, and sorry, but I have probably 60-year septics that cost $20,000. And I cannot give this person a variance, and no engineer is going to give a variance. So I'm asking for the county attorney to write them a letter, and based on the information that's in my packet, plus based on the state.
Tom's got a question, Jack. Tom? Do you have a question, Tom?
Yes, thank you. I do. I can wait if she's not quite done. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let her finish here real quick.
Oh, no, that's good.
That's where you are right now. I have a question too, but go ahead, Tom.
So Jackie, a couple things. If people meet that requirements, then they put in a engineered septic. I assume this isn't the real problem here, right? They can't dig down deep enough to get a perk test hole at all.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Because of the rock. Now, it could be fractured rock, which will allow them to dig down 4 feet, whatever they stated, and fill it full of 3 foot of sand. It's the sand that will raise the cost of the septic.
Tom, can I ask
you
related,
get your microphone a little closer?
turn that toward you, Jackie.
Sorry. So is this about whether or not it's expensive or whether or not it's within the rules and guidelines of the outs statutes? It's not our concern about the price of a septic system, is it?
No, and that's my point. I cannot give you any leeway because of the price. And I cannot allow you to do this because of the state statute. Not the state of Colorado Regulation 43.
Can you hear her all right, Tom?
Not very well, no. Pretty fuzzy. So if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So Jackie, this vault system, if they can't dig a hole deep enough to get a person hole, how are they going to dig a hole big enough to put a vault in?
I thought the same thing, but when you own 6.57 acres, you can go down the hill and cut down some trees and probably get a standard septic in. But I cannot judge where a person puts their perk or their test holes. But I did go to the site and I did see where the test holes were dug. And I had mentioned that why don't we get the contractor out there and go down in where the trees and stuff are, because 6 acres is quite a big piece of property and you have lots of room. Unless you're sitting on 6 acres of rock. And the point was that they didn't want to take the trees out. So I have tried.
Okay, Tom, I have a related question to that. And I was going to ask that. I looked at it. I see the map. I see the 6 acres. There's trees there. And I'm very familiar with it. There's no reason why they couldn't put a leach field in somewhere. It looks to me very
Correct.
obvious.
But most of the people,
They don't want to cut the trees down.
they don't want to cut the trees down. And then also, they would like to be as close as they can to a road so they don't have that big a trip out of their property.
So, sounds like they're a problem.
Correct. And I just wanted to put this out on the table and see if the county attorney could solve my problem as usual.
Well, let's ask him if he has any. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, she's basically asking for the strong arm in reverse. I can certainly write a letter saying that, you know, she's explained all the options to them and there's not any way they're eligible to put a vault in on the property. I can reiterate it.
Thank you.
Will that
I have
help? Go
another
ahead.
question for Jackie, if I may.
Go ahead, Tom.
So Jackie, in layman's terms, if they install a vault, are they going to put an outhouse above it? Or are they going to put this vault under their house and have a toilet above it? Or what's that look like?
If they had a vault and got permission, they would pipe their house to the vault. And then they'd have to have an alarm and get it pumped out. And so that is how come, if you look at regulation 43, you cannot have to have a really good reason to have a vault anymore. Because, and it's usually an acre or less property is automatically allowed a vault, and an engineer will write a letter. But even an engineer won't touch this one.
Do they have water on this property?
No, they don't have anything on this property.
Are they going to drill a well?
Would they eventually? I mean, I'm trying to figure out how the vault thing works. Are they going to have a flushable toilet flushing into the vault?
Yes. They're gonna build
Thank you.
a cabin, and I showed you a picture of the cabin.
How do they get water?
They, didn't tell me how they get water.
There are no plans to drill a well right now that you
No,
know
and
of.
I don't ask about water because I can haul water and flush my toilet.
Okay, but right now you're saying they don't qualify for a vault, so that's off the table. And they've got the right amount of land. They can do a lot of different choices of where they want to put either a septic system or a above ground system or whatever, right?
And I would have basically had this under control months ago, but now they don't like what I say. So they are going around the barn trying to get someone to agree with them.
Well, pretty clear to me. I'll ask Clint. I think a letter's probably appropriate and let it go from there. And that's their choice. What do you think, Kevin?
It sounds to me like that would be a good option moving forward. I believe I saw somewhere in your paperwork when I went through it that they had stated that there was going to be a cistern for water, but I am not finding it now, kind of coming back through there, so.
And it could be, I usually don't ask water questions because that's out of my scope.
Okay. Tom, what do you think? That Clint?
Well, I just, thank you, sir. Again, per county regulations, they have to have a flushable toilet. Is that correct for them to inhabit a structure?
It's for the plumbing code also. The plumbing code, we don't allow any, good point, because we don't allow any chemical toilets. And the plumbing code states that if you build a new structure, you have to have a full-fledged septic and a flushing toilet. But they can haul their water.
Okay, then I think they're really, their question should be, and I'm struggling hearing you, Jackie, completely, but I'm guessing they're asking you, why can't we have a vault? If we get it pumped on a regular basis and it doesn't overflow, you're saying it's because they have more than 1 acre.
Yes, they have other options to get a full-fledged septic in, if I'm hearing you right, Tom. And plus I talked to the state guy and he said, no, that would not be allowed by our regulation.
Okay,
Okay, so
and you told them you were going to bring it to the Board of Health, correct?
No, I did not. I think Rhonda Martin, in her last email stated to the property owners that I was coming to the Board of Health with it.
Okay. Yeah, I think Chairman Kanda, we ought to instruct the attorney to draft a letter in conjunction with Jackie and just tell them we think there's other alternatives they can pursue, that we just don't offer variances for vaults, I mean, unless there's extenuating circumstances.
right by the regulations and the amount of land they have, it's really a requirement. So Clint, can you work that with her?
I can certainly write a letter.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Commissioner or Chairman Kanda,
Go ahead.
so you are aware, from the camera's perspective, you do not have an attorney in the office.
He's hiding. Raise your hand, Clint. There he is.
I see, I just barely catch the top of his head one. Oh, there he is.
He's well protected just in case.
That's right, that's right.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other issues? Are you good now, Jackie? Are we
Yeah,
happy?
At this point, I won't bring up anymore.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and now we're ready to move forward into, I don't think we do not have any unfinished business, and we will allow public comment. We only have one item on the agenda, and we're carrying this item, a new business, as a routine because we are going to continue monitoring our metrics during the COVID pandemic until it's appropriate to not be monitoring them anymore. And because we're going to be on top of this, as we stated in our press releases before. So I'm ready to move on unless there's a general public question on what you've just heard. Okay, anybody on the net? Well, all right. Okay, well, let's move forward. So consideration of the county COVID-19 metrics, we've seen that, and it appears as if we're plateaued, and we're where we were a few weeks ago, and I'm glad to see that people have taken hold and taken personal responsibility as they see their situation, and I don't have anything else to add to that. Kevin, you have any comments?
No, I was happy to hear Dr. Brown stating that it seems as though the people are still taking it upon themselves to
Personal responsibility.
Yeah, take responsibility for their own personal actions, so to speak, and that if they, and the businesses as well. I know there are still plenty of businesses that are asking that people mask up when they come in, and that was the intent, that we put it out for them to take care moving forward, that they can make those requirements. It was not that we were telling them they cannot, and I'm happy to hear that people are taking responsibility.
Okay, before I add, there are several businesses here. I'd like to hear from them also, but Tom, any comments?
Yes, sir, thank you. I want to go back and visit a statement, Chairman Candidate, you had mentioned at a previous Board of Health meeting, and I think it was one subsequent to us voting to lift the restrictions, and that was the topic of finding some metric that we can look at to determine if in fact we do need to go back on the dial. We never finished that conversation. I don't know if we pick a magic number or what we do there, but I do think it merits a conversation at the Board of Health.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea because as time goes on, things will change or not. We need to figure out what that means. So Dr. Brown, he has a comment here, Tom.
My thoughts, Tom, were to continue on the same metric scale because we have such a history there. So we can look back and say, okay, is it changing now? Is it changing for the better? Is it changing for the worse? If we use the same basis for making determination now that we have been for the last now over a year. So that's my suggestion. And if things start to change, we're still going to be negotiating with the state and with our people as far as what we do and how we do it to make changes if we have a problem develop. So I would not like to change horses in midstream, so to speak, as far as our metrics. I would like to stay right where we are, so we have a way to look at them that is established and has been done for at least a year now. Anyway, that's my first choice. If you have other thoughts, I'm certainly willing to entertain.
Again, I apologize, gentlemen. I had a hard time understanding everything that Dr. Brown said, but I gathered that he indicated he's not in favor of quote unquote picking a number of positives that would occur to put us back on the dial. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, sir, Tom. I'm sorry, I didn't speak up enough. Yes, I want to follow very much the same type of measure that we have had. Am I too long?
No.
Let me give you my computer. Try that.
Can you hear him, Tom?
Can you hear me now, Tom?
Yeah, that's 10 times better. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that it wasn't coming through. Anyway, what I would like to do would be to keep on the metrics that we have been using and that we not deviate from that we use the same percentage. If we have percent positives, that we use the same percentage as we were using before, that the state is using at this time, and go from there.
And that's 3.5%.
Positive tests against the number of, the positives that we find, clinical findings from the test results that we get against the number of tests that have been run.
Let me ask a question, Tom. Can you hear me, Tom?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we cannot hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. We agreed that as we go through time, we want to watch where a spike occurs and then carefully deal with that group of area, whether it be a business, a school, or a outdoor event or whatever, so we can monitor it. Rather than, we don't want to wait and because a metric that says, that's one of the reasons that we don't like what the state's doing to us, one size fits all. We want to be able to react quickly and maintain our ability to stay as normal as we can without bringing the whole county businesses down and at large. So will that work that way, or are we going to watch the incidents as they occur, or?
Yes, we'll
We've
be
been
watching
watching the average. Sorry. We'll be watching the incidents, the cumulative incidents and so on, just like we have been all the way through. And if it pops above 5%, we probably will move sooner than 5% rather than wait for that.
With that individual spike and that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That help, Tom?
Well, I'm trying to get my mind wrapped around it. So, Dr. Brown, you're saying if we look at 5% of the people tested, if they spike, is that right?
It's in the 1 week and 2 week positivity ratings that we have. Yes.
And you're
So you're
suggesting we use the
measuring
5%.
just 1 week or 2 weeks,
Well, which?
not the whole year.
We got to decide.
Well, we get both
Measures, we want to respond as quickly as we possibly can. So if we have a sudden spike, it won't be 2 or 3 weeks, Tom, it would be the 1 week.
Okay.
You're going to react real time, basically, in the
Yes, sir.
period of a week.
That's what I'm proposing, yes.
And
So
then deal with-
define for me
then.
again, then what constitutes a spike? That's the real question.
Once again, if we go above 5% or start to approach that, then we would have to move. But we also have to move if we see, even if that has not happened, if we have an outbreak, which is 2 or more from the same general area, then we want to respond commensurate with how everybody else has been responding all the way through.
But within that group, not blanket moving restrictions on everybody. It would be dealing with what caused the impact, right?
Yes.
The
Doing
spike.
your investigation,
And
doing the contact tracing,
that
that is still being done for us by the state.
I was-
So, yeah, and we're not always going to know that it came from ABC location, right?
That's
It'd be
true.
great if we
We
knew
will
that.
know, however, from the contact tracing, we will have a lot of information because they literally do a very good job of tracking down any contacts that have been demonstrated by testing, by symptomatology and so on, so that we don't have to wait for a test. And we have a lot of people sensitive and symptomatic. We will probably move at that point.
Let me say something. Okay, let me see if I understand what you just said then. We have the ability to at least understand who in the county has been impacted. We don't necessarily have every contact or where it is, but we can deal with the personnel that are at issue and make sure that we are protecting the rest of the public, right?
through the tracing and contract and investigation, we actually do
That's right.
get a hold of these
Right.
people.
And so that's what you're saying. You'll be on the top of that immediately. We're not going to have to wait and then convene a meeting and decide that you're going to do something. We'll know about it as soon as you do.
But if it's a slow trend,
As it sometimes is,
then we would
would
be
be, we would be watching the percent.
So, Mr.
All right,
Chairman,
I think I understand, and I think the way things have been going, it's been pretty benign. It's been pretty constant, steady state. I certainly think we would see a spike of some kind, whether it's 3 people or 10, we're going to see it immediately.
Yes, sir.
Well, and that was my whole point, Mr. Chair, is what are we going to use to define a spike? If we talk 5% of the people tested, that's 127 people.
No.
That's not,
That's not, this is during a specific period of time, like a week for week positivity or 2-week positivity. It's not taking the whole year. It's not the way it works, Tom.
did you hear him, Tom?
Yeah, how many people were tested this last week, for example, then?
Look it up for you just a minute.
Minute, please.
He's looking it up, Tom.
Yeah, I'm looking at his email
this-
here.
He's looking it up, Tom.
I understand.
Kevin, can you mute that?
He must have that information somewhere else, because it's not on his latest report that he gave us.
Actually, the number was 2,202, I believe, for the total. So we would have to subtract out from the last 2 weeks or the last week, whichever one you want, to be able to give you an exact number, but it is approximately, we change between 10 and 25 or so daily
Tests.
tests. Yes, how many people, his question was, how many people were tested during the last week?
And do we know that number?
That's what I just told you. I didn't give you an exact number, but we get, every day, we have between 10 and 20 tests reported to us in Cedars in the COVID-19 that's open public information.
So what is it roughly then? Say it again.
Once again, I would say between 10 and 20, but to give it a full, if we didn't have a lot of tests one particular day, like a Sunday, we might have 5.
Okay. Copy that, Tom?
I do. I'm frustrated that, and I think I understand the cause, but I'm frustrated that we don't know exactly how many tests were done in this county on any given.
Yes, we do, Tom.
Wait, hold. Okay.
Did I hear Dr. Brown said we do?
Yes, he does. He says we do. We know exactly, he said, because he has the actual numbers and he subtracts it from the total for the week. So he knows exactly what it is.
If you want it per day, we can give it to you per day.
Did you?
I thought I heard him say between 10 and 20. That's not a very exact number.
Well, Tom, you didn't ask for a specific day. If you want a specific day, I can go back and look that up for you. Just makes a subtraction. It's very easy.
I asked if we knew how many tests were done on any given week. We decided we were going to do a metrics by 1 or 2 weeks, right?
Yes, and we just gave you the number for 2 weeks. Was it
136.
136 since the 1st of March?
Did you hear that, Tom?
I'm sorry, it broke up. I didn't hear that.
He said it's 136 since the 1st of March. That's the actual number of tests.
And who gave you that number?
It's off of Cedar. Tell him how you got it.
It is, you can look it up. It's on public reports every single day on COVID-19 testing, positives, so on, with all the incidents listed for you. You don't even have to calculate it out yourself.
Hold on one second. Reggie's got a point.
And those numbers are posted daily on
Okay.
the Public Health Agency Facebook page.
Okay.
Number of tests that have been issued each day, and number of positive.
Okay, I think I have a solution here. Those numbers are posted daily, Tom, but what I would recommend, I think where Tom is, there's no reason in the world we can't have you report to us the weekly number that we have. And you can see that, and we'll see it immediately the minute you see it.
I've been giving it to you every day.
Yeah, but we need it.
No, that's not true.
That's not the way we don't see it, Cliff. We don't, it's not obvious. It would be easier to just point out that the weekly run-in percent based on a number of tests for the week is X and the number of positives is X for the week. And that way we can see it clearly and then whatever positivity that is, and we can decide, and you can tell us if that's significant or not, as you're reporting it. Right now, we're just left up to the casual observer to see the numbers, and I haven't been subtracting anything.
No, I've not been giving you the number of tests per day because I've been giving it to you for the total and you have it
Right.
from the previous day and
Right.
so on.
So we need the weekly run-in average that we're using to look at the spike if there is one.
We can very definitely give that to you very easily.
If I may.
Go ahead, Kevin.
And I think what he was stating, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, when he said that he was giving that to us, he does include in our report the 1 week or 2 week positivity rate, and he is figuring that off of those numbers. He has not given us the specific number of tests, but that is where that positivity rate comes from. Am I correct?
It's not coming from the total, it's coming from that weekly number.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Did you hear that, Tom?
I did. I think you're right, Kevin. And so, yeah, if we're going to try to find a metrics that's going to direct us whether or not we need to go back on the dial, then we have to know how many positives we have in a week. I think 2 weeks is too long. There's a lot of stuff can happen in 14 days.
I give you.
And then we have to decide what percent of those people tested in that week we're going to use for a metric.
I give
Now, if
you
we-
a percent positivity every single day, and it's from a 7-day window.
Okay. And Tom, I need to correct something. It's not us going back on a dial. It's us reacting to the spike and handling it and making sure we are doing the right thing for that population, isolating them, doing whatever it takes. We don't have to wait for the state to ask to whether we need to do anything. All right. All right. I think we've got the data. I think it just needs to be clear that it's a weekly running. I know you're doing it every day, but it's over a period of a running week, apparently. Is that right?
Yeah, the percent positivity is for 7-day. It also is given for 14 days. Every day.
Got a question?
I do have, I think, speaking to Tom's question, what if we were to, Tom, look at if our weekly percentage of positives hits 3%, we monitored, we would look at that very closely, and if it started trending upward from there, we would be able to put in place some restrictions that we need to here at the county level, which would be depending on, there again, we have the metrics. Is this a family gathering that got these people positive, or does it appear to be coming from a business? So we know whether or not we need to go to that business and say, this seems to be the source and we need to address the situation now.
So we're tailoring, you're suggesting tailoring the response per the incident as it's warranted.
But I think 3% would be a good number to
Start with.
raise a flag for us to look at the situation very closely.
And we get all of that information back from our contact tracing and investigation.
I like that.
Does that sound plausible to you, sir?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's, the real question is going to be, what are we going to do about it if we have a spike? That's what we need to decide as a Board of Health.
Right, and we can't do it until we see it.
I'm of the opinion, and Dr. Brown can correct me if I'm wrong, there'll be very few instances where we can actually determine where an outbreak started. Now, I know of one in the last year that started in a Thanksgiving dinner. If somebody comes up positive, are we going to unequivocally be able to say this is where that person got COVID? I don't think so.
I disagree, Tom, but I'm gonna let the doctor speak to that.
That's not the case, Tom, because of the contact tracing and investigation. They give us very specifically, because they ask the questions, they do a very good job. So it's not a guesswork. They usually come back with a contact point. So we can actually go in and deal with the people and find out what's going on and see what we can help to change so that it does not continue.
Is that whether it's a business or residence
doesn't
or
make any
a
difference. Yes.
church or whatever?
That's right.
I think you deal with that like we've stated before. It's how, what happens and what action is warranted, given the facts and who's involved. Then we, as a Board of Health, have to react. We need data to do that. Can't have a one size fits all. All right. Any other comments? I like that, personally. Do you want to make that as a recommendation? Are you good with that as
I'm
procedure?
very good with that. That's fine. That's a starting point. If we need to make changes, we can make changes.
Okay, you want to move that we do that, Kevin?
Okay, I'll try to get this all out. I would like to make a motion then that we look at the 3% positivity rate, weekly rate, as a trigger for us to look at a situation closely and monitor it to see if it is going up or down, and adjust accordingly as far as our response to the situation, as to if we need to require a business to close for a few days or a couple of weeks, if that is where it is deemed to come from, or to take appropriate action.
So maybe if we make it more general, we want to look at a 3% running positivity weekly rate and take a look, and if it is adversely increased, then we need to convene a meeting and adjust accordingly as required. Is that what you want to do? I'll second that. Now, so from a point of view, let's have some discussion. We've got some businesses in here. I'd like to, you've all heard what we're proposing here. It's, and that's not businesses, churches and personnel, people too. We want to keep a tight look on how we're progressing, because we want to be better than it was under the state guidelines, because it was very slow and it was very adverse to our businesses and to our people. So we want to do the right thing. I think it's a good step here. Any discussion?
Lucas,
Well, can we repeat?
so based upon,
Whoops, I can't. Tom, can't hear you. Lucas Epp. There.
Do we have a motion
Yeah,
on the
there
floor?
is. A motion's on the floor. It's been moved and seconded to use the three. You didn't hear that? I'm sorry, Tom. This is not working out well here on the computer. The motion was to use 3% as our guideline to take a look, convene a Board of Health review as quick as we can to understand what it is doing, good or bad, and then react accordingly to whatever that incident is, whether it's a business, a church, outdoor event, or a family. So that's the discussion right now. And Lucas Epp had a question, Tom.
so 136 people last 2 weeks. 7-day window would be 68 people. My math is correct. 4 positives is 3% in a 2-week period of time. 2 positives would be 3% for a 1-week window of time. Appreciate the comment about where it might come from, because it could be complete visitors. The 10 to 20 people testing, I wish I had the information on, are those repeat testers? Who's getting tested that often? I mean, I talked to a lot of people
and I don't meet hardly a single person that goes in and gets tested more than once. So I've got, and if Cedars makes mistakes on other things, are they making mistakes here? So it's really hard, and I understand you guys. It's hard to make decisions when we get nothing but misinformation from our state officials, their heavy-handedness, the regulations. It gets awfully hard to make decisions as a business, because at the same time we've had to have these employees masked up. It's caused other health problems that we are, some of them we're seeing, and some of them are unforeseen. And we don't see those consequences yet. And we're probably gonna see them. So I just wanted to make sure that we're looking at that positivity rate in the right light. Before we decide to do anything.
Well,
I appreciate keeping the motion general and not specific to what could happen or what.
No, that has to
could
be done.
Because otherwise, we can't flip flop back and forth with businesses.
I don't think he was proposing that at a 3% that we do something drastic. It was, you have to sit down and look at the specifics
Right.
before we would act, and it would certainly be in conjunction with the people that are affected, whether it's a business or whatever.
If I may.
Go ahead, Ken.
To address that to a degree, my intent is that would trigger us to take a close look, which it should. That doesn't mean that the extenuating circumstances don't come into play when we do look at that. Were these 2 positive or 5 positives? Did they come from a Thanksgiving dinner,
Right.
all in the same family? That is stuff that needs to be looked at when we address the situation, because that could be an isolated incident, or it could be something that could be presenting a problem. And that's one of the things that I think needs to be dealt with on a case-by-case situation, because we can't foresee everything that's going to take place.
No, I agree.
And that was my intent.
I think that's good. I just don't want to do a knee jerk. I want to make sure that 3% doesn't have us jumping through hoops too much too soon either. We need to, and like you said, we can probably adjust that as we go through the next couple of weeks. And we're not going to turn our back on this.
No, and if that kicks off a special meeting for you guys to go, hey, we're starting to see it, I'm okay with that. But
Okay.
What we don't want to do is what was done to us before. If one situation is causing a problem, everybody has to pay.
right, no, and I understand that. The fact that the state never came down and talked to a single business in this county makes me lump, I'm sorry, maybe all politicians in the same basket, but with very few times of talking with businesses, and unfortunately, we don't have a chamber of commerce anymore, so we don't have the businesses all as a whole, and there is no representation here from the businesses other than my own. So it's awfully hard to make a decision or help out without proper information. So
Well, I think that's a good point. Very good point. We've been very good at this plateaus. It's here now. I mean, it looks promising. And I think a 3% warning isn't going to hurt us to at least take a look and see where we are at the beginning, and then we can adjust it as needed, I hope.
All right, well, thank you. I understand the hard situation you're in. Let me know if I can help. I hope to be a help, not part of the problem.
Thank you for the input.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Okay.
So we're still in discussion of the motion, is that right?
Yes, we are, Tom.
Gilbert.
Okay.
Just a second here. Can you hear me, Tom?
Yes,
Yeah, we're still in discussion. And I think Dr. Gilbert, James Gilbert, were you trying to talk?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, thanks a lot. Right, it's great that you're looking for a indicator to raise your level of vigilance. My concern is that with the testing percentage, remember, you're looking at an indicator that is lagging. And that indicator is somewhere between a week to 10 days out from the infective event. So that when you get your 3%, that transmission is already underway in the county. So if you have a 3% in a week, say we've run 100 tests or 97 tests in a week and we get 3 in one day, that's 3%. And if we get 5 in the next day and 10 in the next day, then we're looking at the effects of those original 3 from 2 weeks ago. So you're a little bit lagging there. You might want to consider looking at actual case numbers as well, rather than a percentage of tests run for that standpoint. I share Tom's concern about being able to identify specifically where the positivity is coming from. Because again, because of the lagging nature of the testing, that could have looked like a Thanksgiving dinner, but in reality, it was a snowbird from Texas that just drove in,
Right,
and spread it around.
very, very good point, Dr. Gilbert. Thank you for the comment. And I thought that the actual case you were watching as well. Go
May I
ahead.
respond to you, Dr. Gilbert?
Can you hear Dr. Brown?
Can you hear me at all, sir?
Absolutely.
Try it again. Can you hear Dr. Brown?
Can you hear me, Dr. Gilbert?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can hear you.
Are you muted? Okay, go ahead.
Don't do that.
Since even though we don't have a very rapid test that gives us a lot of good information, from what I've been led to believe, it is usually a false negative, not a false positive, that is more often occurring in use of that particular test. The virologist that I dealt with in Maryland suggested that, okay, if you get a negative but the guy is symptomatic, don't wait for another week. Test the next day and see if then you get a positive. If he's symptomatic and has no positives in a set of 2 studies, then you're probably dealing with something else other than the COVID. Would that help to answer your question or your concern? Because that's the concern that I have. But with the advent here finally in the valley of the rapid tests, we should be able to get a couple of those and give us some kind of an indication one way or the other, whether it's real or if it's another entity, another virus, another bacteria, whatever.
No, I'm not worried about that at all. My worry is when you're doing that testing, the person's been infected for 10 days already.
Well,
that's my concern.
Yes.
I'm not
there's
concerned about the speed of the
there,
test
but there is
anymore.
no way to determine. I would rather do a rapid test and do a couple of them within 24 hours and find out one way or the other than wait for another week and a half, like you mentioned, to get the regular.
You're missing my point.
Studies done.
You're missing my point. You're taking a test. You're taking a test post-infection. The person could be infected up to 10 days to 12 days before you test them, and they're spreading all the time.
No.
So the test timing is irrelevant from that standpoint. And it's good to do rapid tests and retest negatives if you have a symptomatic that you suspect is COVID. I agree with you. But my point being that the infective event goes undetected for various periods of time, up to 10 days, 2 weeks.
Very, very true. I just do not know of any way to check when the guy is not symptomatic in the first place, because they usually don't get tested.
And that can
They don't
happen
know
at
about it.
any time, anywhere, all the time. So we've got, at least we have to have something to take a look, make us look closely at. And I don't see a problem with the 3% as a number for now, and do the, keep track of the cases that they, and let's see how we go.
The trackers have been actually giving us within 24 hours, they have been giving me information. So they are really working hard at getting as fast as we can. It just, you're right. We can't go back. We have no way of measuring 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I've got an observation or two I'd like to make. if I
Other
may.
than a rapid rise in the number of positives.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, Jim. Tom's got a couple observations. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, one, I agree with where I believe Dr. Gilbert's coming from, and I don't think anybody would argue with this. Generally speaking, it's my opinion that nobody's going to go get tested for COVID unless they're symptomatic.
That's right.
And if they're symptomatic when they get tested, he's exactly right. We have no way of knowing how many people could have been exposed to that individual. So your point's well taken, Dr. Gilbert, in my mind.
The investigation.
Here's what I'm worried about is that 3 or 4 days go by, maybe 3 or 4 days after this meeting, and we have 15 or 20 people infected in this county. And then we're going to sit around, well, now what are we going to do? Well, it's a little too late to be wringing our hands if we have 15 or 20 people that have tested positive for COVID. Sure, the contact tracing is going to occur, we assume, but that's how it exponentially spread last year, right? I mean, that's a concern of mine. So I've got another, I just want to throw this out.
Can you hold that, Tom, related to your last point, Dr. Brown, did you have
No, that's okay.
you ready to go on? Go ahead, Tom, with the next piece.
So this question's for Dr. Brown. You have reported in the last few days that we've had 1 new positive. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And when did that number hit our books? When was that
That
reported?
was the 15th,
Monday.
Okay,
Monday.
all right, Monday. So, of course, you're going to know about this, but I will share with you that I personally know 3 people that have tested positive for COVID since the 15th. So that brings that number to 4. When are we going to get concerned? That's my question from the very beginning of this. What does that number look like before we get concerned and do something concrete about it to keep it from spreading or getting any worse?
I depend
Because
on
we
the
have
number-
4 right now in the county. I guarantee you that.
I depend on the numbers, both from our clinic here and from Cedars. Those are my really 2 only sources of information, unless I have a director from another county phone me or text me or whatever and tell me that they have had a positive from
Right.
county.
And so the
Right.
positives that Tom's talking about, we're going to hit somewhere if they're really real. I don't know what he's talking about, but it could
Well,
be.
I can tell you what I'm talking about. I personally know 3 other people that tested positive.
No, I understand what you
COVID.
said, Tom. I'm just wondering when they're going to show up because they've been tested. We don't know when, what time, what day. That's going to come to your attention, isn't it?
Right. And that's what I said. It's going to end up in Dr. Brown's office
Sure.
eventually. Yes.
And at that point, if we adopt what we're talking about, we'll be convening a meeting. We're going to say, hey, it's whatever percentage, what would that bring the percentage to in a running week?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's 4 plus whatever it is, but we would be on top of it at that point immediately.
And I did receive a call letting me know that there's a possible, even today.
Okay.
Okay, so these things, there's not a long period of time. It's just that quite often, as you said, people do not get tested until they're symptomatic, and that's,
So then we have to react
Yes.
as we can. We're not magicians. We got to react with the data and we got to do it logically.
yeah, we can't put it as a general rule. We have to react with each situation as it presents.
All right, any other comments? We'll move on. Out here. Ms. Wilson, come on, speak really loud.
Okay, I'll yell.
Yeah, come on up there into that mic there. It'd be easy.
I'm particularly glad to see that we're taking our businesses into the situation because it does make an up and down thing for them also. And that's important as everything is in this situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, who was the speaker?
That was Ann Wilson,
Thank you.
Dr. Ann Wilson. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's these Zoom meetings are not my favorite. We need to get everything
Mr.
in.
Chairman, I have one more comment. I
Who's
have
speaking?
one question.
Dr. Gilbert, go ahead.
James Gilbert.
Go ahead.
One more question. Regarding businesses, I am curious now with respect to businesses who have distancing and mask requirements per their choice, and they choose to enforce them. Who do they call to come and assist them with enforcing their mandates?
There is no county personnel going to respond, if that's what you're asking. But it is on the person. The businesses has the right to refuse service. They have the right to have them removed. And at that point, the sheriff would come in as a fact, and we've talked to him about it, because it is now in a different category. It is a disturbance. It's trespassing or whatever it might be, if it was a big deal that was made. But they can recommend.
So my question is, that does not fly in conflict to Resolution 2105 you passed this morning in the Board of Commissioners meeting?
I don't think so. I don't see how.
Where you said that no county funds or services would be utilized for violations of unconstitutional rules on people.
No, that's correct. But look what I just said. Today, even 10 years ago, a business had the right to refuse service to anybody. And if it caused a problem, the sheriff would come and help remove that person. That's still in effect. It doesn't impact anybody's constitutional rights. That's just the right of that business to operate under the Constitution, basically.
If I may.
Go ahead, Kevin.
So it's constitutional for a business to require a mask.
If I may respond, sir.
Correct.
Let Kevin Day speaking now, Jim.
Our resolution this morning it was in regards to mandates coming down from the state and federal level. We were not stating that a business could not require individuals to follow the safety protocols that they have in place. That was never an intent of any of this. The intent is that they have the right to be able to, if they want to continue with the 6-foot distancing, if they want to continue with the masking and all of that, they are more than welcome to. But they are not required to because the state or the federal government tells them to.
And the sheriff has responded, in fact, before, and supports this. He definitely will, if that causes a disturbance in the business, one way or the other, he will be there to help. Okay. Any other comments? All right, I think right now the motion on the floor is to institute a 3% window to take a look and convene a Board of Health look at what the situation is and react accordingly. Is that a succinct way of putting it?
That is correct.
Okay, so I want to call for a vote and move on.
Well, I got a question before you do, sir.
Go ahead.
So 3%, I get the number. 3% of what? The number of people tested in a week?
Go ahead. I think that's what it was, a running week's tally, day by day. That week changes, it moves forward. And that percentage, we're gonna look at, if it hits 3%, we're gonna take a hard look.
And Tom, if there were a lot.
So that would be like a Monday through,
But Dr. Brown was just trying to answer. Go ahead, Dr. Brown, real quick.
If there were an exceptionally large number of tests done that week and it just showed 2.7% or something like this, but there were a lot of positives, new positives, it wouldn't take 3% to trigger off a reaction and say, we got to look at this now.
That's where you said, we point out the case, the
Yes.
actual number of cases matters as well. Okay. All right. Well, I would like to call for the vote. All in favor of the motion to use the 3% running window and the caseload in conjunction with that. It's been moved and seconded. Vote aye. Kevin?
Aye.
Tom?
and so I'm clear, we're talking about on a weekly basis.
A running weekly tally,
7 days.
a 7-day running window.
So is that Monday through Sunday? I really don't even know what we're voting on, to be honest with you. It's just, the motion was for 3%.
3% off of a 7-day window, and it moves day by day, and he's going to be looking at it. If on Saturday, it moves up because there's another case of positive, and it brings it to 3%, or the caseload is exceptionally high, then we will convene a meeting.
It's the most recent 7 days, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll vote yes.
Okay, Kanda, aye. Got it? Okay, I think that's a good start. The bottom line, I want the public to understand, we are taking care of our own issues on the ground, boots on the ground here as we see them immediately, as fast as the data will support. I mean, immediate is nebulous. That's it's a running tally. So thank you all for being patient. Is there any other items?
I have none.
Kevin?
None here.
None here either, and I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Any other public comment?
Other public comments before we do?
I would move we adjourn.
I'll second it. All in favor, say aye. Kevin?
Aye.
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Kanda, aye. Thank you.